Pallav, thank you for speaking with us today at ET Now. And I have to ask you, you've been making headlines that if you're not making an agentic company, you're making a dying company. I want to know what's the realistic timeline before companies actually think whether they're dead or alive.
This is my point of view on my research, looking at companies that are innovating at a scale unlike anything I've ever seen, including Salesforce. And when there's a realization that you can expand your labor force to be hybrid, humans and AI agents, something we've never experienced in our lifetime, ever experienced. The scale and the speed and the level of intelligence that's being introduced at work is unprecedented. So I ask myself, if you're a company and you're competing in a market where your competitors are leveraging software or hardware, and this software and hardware can reason on its own, it can inject itself into complex business workflows, it can make decisions unsupervised, it can learn with every iteration and adapt. I just can't imagine how you can compete against that formula. So, if you asked me 2-3 years ago, I would have a different event horizon. But in the last 2 years, not only Salesforce has become an agentic enterprise, and what I refer to in my book last year called Autonomous Enterprise, we now have 25,000 companies that are now agentic. And that number continues to grow. The fastest product we've ever built at Salesforce are agentic solutions. So given the rate of adoption, given the superpowers that this digital labor force is bringing to business, I would say, the game has already begun. And if you're not in the game, and the game means you have agents in production, not in your labs or not pilots, it's not PowerPoint slides speaking to it. Your company's running with some agents. Our research shows an average company today has about 10 agents. We have over 300. So there's elasticity in terms of the adoption and innovation. So I think you're already behind, which means I think you're already on the path of irrelevance. And if you extend that journey 2 to 3 years, you're going to lose significant market share. Your customers demand speed to value. Your customers demand personalization. The forcing function is not inside your company, it's outside your company. And we now have choices unlike any other time before. If I receive a poor experience, I can immediately find an alternate. Immediately. Unlike any other time. So why do we think we can deliver costly, slow, and impersonalized service and get away with it? The world of average is gone. There is no demand for average anymore. And so my thesis is that when I look at companies that are consistently delivering above average, they're now using this incredible technology, which I think is electricity for the 21st century. No one questions light bulbs anymore.
Yeah.
And when these light bulbs or electricity was introduced, 150 years ago, business owners thought, fantastic, with light I can have a second shift and a third shift, more work time. They could never imagine that electricity was going to retool their business, new machines, new products, new business models. I think a lot of business leaders still view AI as, just another light bulb, and they're not necessarily thinking about this radical implication that exists in business when you can deliver value at the speed of need. It's hard to beat someone that can deliver value at the speed of need. And I think today only companies with agentic capabilities are able to do that.
In your 25 years experience in India, where do you think India is in that race? In the next 2 to 3 years, how quick would be the agentic adoption in India?
Oh, what a great question. Because it helps me reflect on the 25 years in India. I just think about 2020 to present. Just in the first half of this decade, we've increased our presence here by 9x.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. We've surpassed.
The world has moved at that speed.
Since COVID. Not all. Well, certainly the world of Salesforce. No other part I can point to a 9x increase. It's one of the fastest growing regions for our company. We're across the $1 billion in revenue, annual revenue milestone. Holistically looking at India, not just Salesforce ecosystem. Sure. But it is important, just in the Salesforce ecosystem, just the ecosystem minus Salesforce, IDC believes that the Salesforce ecosystem will add 1.8 million new jobs by 2028 and add $89 billion of new revenue to Indian businesses. This is just the Salesforce ecosystem. So stepping back and looking at the macro trends, the third largest unicorn ecosystem in the world
is here.
131 unicorns. I think you added 4 unicorns just this year, in the first few months of this year. We know that because Salesforce is deeply invested in startups and entrepreneurs in India. Scheduled to reach $5 trillion economy by next year, which would place you number 3 in the world, only behind US and China. By 2030, 1/5 of that $5 trillion plus will come from digital. That is growing at 2 times faster than any other sector in India. Now, no surprise, because you have the incredible infrastructure. You're graduating 10 million students, 3 million of whom are STEM graduates. That's 3 times more than the graduates in the US. Stanford rated India number 1 in the world in terms of AI readiness. So in every macro, micro, financial, non-financial metric that I look at, to answer your question, I feel this is, in terms of a leadership race, comes to 3 countries. And India is part of those 3 countries. Incredibly, incredibly bright future.
Good to hear that.
Yeah.
But
proud to be a part of that. Proud to be a part of that.
Yes, also. But tell me, you've been here in India since 2001, and you've only just launched Hindi, right?
Right.
As an Agentforce.
Right.
Where do you think is the scope of non-English or vernacular languages for not just India, for most countries across the world?
Well, certainly recognizing for a long time that 52% of the most populated country on the earth speaks that language. This is what I call the part of the discussion around becoming agentic that we don't talk enough about, which is what I call value reclamation. A lot of the conversation in terms of leveraging AI has had a subtraction narrative. Maybe less people, less cost, more productive, greater margin, profit, EBITDA. It's all about doing more with less. Yeah. It turns out that when you design a process and you onboard an agent, and you only onboard agent for jobs that are high volume, high frequency, highly deterministic, which ultimately speak to low value jobs. And when you can separate the low value jobs, by the way, that brings joy and greater career for your human labor. Yeah. You not only end up increasing your productivity and increasing your margins and health of your company, but you now freed up your human talent to reclaim those things you should have been doing, like supporting an incredibly important language. In the past, for economic reasons, for resource reasons, we justify to ourselves that one of the most important languages on earth didn't need support from us. But now, we freed up thousands of our employees and our budgets using agentic labor. Businesses are going to recognize this is what I call latent value. There are customer signals that they've ignored in the past, roadmap and product features they've ignored in the past, better experiences through wider language support. By the way, since we've launched Agentforce at Salesforce, we now have 7 new languages that we're supporting that we didn't support in the past. And upon reflection, there's no reason. There's no real good reason. But we no longer have an excuse. In the past, we'd say, well, we don't have the labor to tackle this incredible value we're ignoring. That's gone. So as companies become more agentic, more autonomous, there's this beautiful value reclamation birth that's given. And so, yes, it took us, sadly, 25 years to recognize something we should have done a long time ago, but it's much easier to do now because we have limitless labor as part of our Salesforce equation, and that's an incredibly powerful capability to have.
You said something very interesting that, AI is just not about EBITDA margins or, looking at where you can save costs, reduce labor. Then what is AI about? At a company level, at a very sort of micro, cost-sensitive level, how would you define AI?
Let me start with making a bold claim that most businesses have lots of waste. Anytime you assign a wrong resource to a task, by the way, it's a wrong thing to take the 3 million STEM graduates in India graduating from the most prestigious colleges and universities and giving them repetitive work, mundane work to do. That's waste. So assigning a wrong resource, overutilizing a resource. You've given a human individual a task that's Herculean, and it ultimately disrupts their quality of life. They're working more than 40 hours, they're working weekends, they're struggling, climbing a hill, only because we as business leaders didn't recognize that the job was much bigger than any individual could do. And anytime you underutilize a resource, you hire an incredible STEM graduate and they're sitting there, on TikTok or whatever, because you're not challenging them. So overutilization, underutilization, and the wrong resources, that's wasteful. When you talk about waste, all waste is costly. No one's going to raise their hand and say, I think this is good waste. There's no such thing. But when you're chasing EBITDA and margin and profit, what often business leaders do is they look at their highest cost item and they scrutinize in an order of the highest cost to lowest cost, trying to squeeze something out of the business, typically a board mandate or the market demands it. When you do that with only a cost lens, often you take cost out of the business only to realize you have value atrophy. Because even though all waste is costly, not all costs are wasteful. So I believe when you become an agentic enterprise, because there's such precision required to onboard an agent, because it's so composable in nature, business leaders who are becoming agentic are now operating like surgeons. They operate based on the grounded truth. It's not learning by analogy, they're learning by first principle. Yeah. It is about facts. Because if you feed an agent falsehood, it produces falsehood. And you can't afford to do that. No brand wants to drift away from its brand promise. So it's actually creating discipline for us to operate like chefs, not cooks. Chef learn by first principles, cook follow a recipe. And in the absence of a recipe, a cook may not be able to create a delicious meal. A chef, removing waste is an incredible superpower that agents bring to business. And also removing blockages. When I think of an autonomous system, the first thing that comes to mind is you and I. The best example of autonomy are human beings. We're autonomous. And living organisms are flow-based. Flow is all around us. We as humans find clever ways of disrupting flow. Email, a WhatsApp, a meeting, whatever it may be. And when you become agentic and you leverage humans and AIs, because of the precision that comes into play, you identify blockages. And it turns out in living organisms, if you look at the top 10 reasons we cease to exist, 6 of the 10 are due to blockages. Coronary artery disease is the #1 cause of death globally. Cardiovascular, heart attack, stroke, aneurysm.
All blockages.
All blockages. Typically, cavity in your arteries. Oxygenated blood gets impeded by cavities in your artery. Now, if I'm out of breath, there's signal. If I'm perspiring, it may be that I have blockage. I may have to take aspirin, maybe a stent, maybe surgical procedure. In business, it's hard to detect blockages. The faucet is running, the water is dripping. It's hard for business leaders to know if that's at full capacity. And even if you identify a blockage, by the way, in my research, I've identified over 200 blockages exist in business. All businesses. We've identified blockages at Salesforce in our agentic transformation. And it's not surprising to me that more than half of Fortune 500 companies have disappeared since year 2000. This is Fortune 500. So the largest revenue companies in the world, more than 1 in 2, are no longer in business today. My thesis is blockages is what has led to this incredible disruption. Companies that become agentic become more fit. Companies that are less agentic, less autonomous, will continue to struggle. So the pace of innovation is only accelerating. And so you need to be mindful of flow. You need to recognize the more automated, the more autonomous, the more you resemble a living organism, Think of a company like Amazon. 2012, they purchased their first robot. Today, they have 1 million robots in their manufacturing floors. When you go into an Amazon manufacturing floor, it's all about flow. It's all about choreography and orchestration. By the way, they still employ 1.5 million people. So that, it's an incredible example of how a company can resemble living organisms. We have companies all around the world following the same characteristics of flow-based evolution.
When you talk about flow-based, the big concern about AI has also been job losses. Is that reduction as well? Or, I would say it's a derivative of identification of some blockages, maybe, right?
Sure.
Is that going to be the fallout?
Some jobs, I certainly believe all jobs are going to change radically. All jobs, including yours and mine. At Salesforce, we have 85,000 employees. We have 60,000 that daily use agents to function. These men and women are in employee success, in engineering, in sales, in service, in marketing, all over the company. The 25,000 companies that are now agentic companies in every line of business are using agents. What that really means is that if all of us are using a trusted colleague, happens to be digital colleague, in everything that we do, it may be that all work in the future is teamwork. There is no single contributor. It's you and your agent, or you and multiple agents.
But your human team may not have to be as large.
Your human team may not have to be as large. What I believe is you're going to now have still 8 people, but it's going to be 4 projects maybe. It's a person, a business person and a technology person and an agent on a project. You have technology acumen, business acumen, and an agent guiding you. So it doesn't mean less people, but this is about value reclamation. Instead of 8 people on one project, you now have 8 people on 4 projects. One of them you did in the past, 3 of them are net new. That's the positive nature of limitless labor where you have artificial intelligence helping you. And I will say there's 2 classes I think business leaders should think about. One is cognitive transfer. Take the low impact, high frequent, fully deterministic job and give it to software. And by the way, do it with gusto. There's no goodness in forcing a human to spend his or her career doing mundane work. That just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me because I have a Salesforce badge. So I know I belong to Salesforce. But just because I have a Salesforce badge doesn't mean I have a sense of mattering. A lot of time we have a sense of belonging because we're a part of a community, but many of us question whether our work matters. And so if you question whether your work matters, it's likely because the work is of low value and it's not helping you expand your mind, it's not helping you be creative, it's not giving you that feeling on a Sunday night saying, I can't wait for tomorrow. Most of us don't have that experience. I do. I love, I have a dream job. But that's because I don't have mundane work, neither do you. So we have joy. Our resting face is a smile. So cognitive transfer is one. The other is using artificial intelligence to elevate us. That's a cognitive upgrade. What I see at Salesforce is my colleagues are using agents to elevate their ability to think, to reason, to sell, to market, to service, to build. 1 in 5 jobs at Salesforce is now being guided by an agent. An agent looks at my current position, my current skills, looks at openings at Salesforce where the compensation is greater. The agent tells me, these are the openings, this is the current skill you have, these are the skills you need, does a gap analysis, recommends courses for me, and then validates that 70% of employees that followed these courses were promoted in the last 12 months. So there's evidence that I'm being guided to a better life, creating generational wealth for my family, and all of this is being done by an agent. That's cognitive upgrade. So if we can have this mindfulness in business, that the power of AI is both transfer of low value and upgrading our skills for high value work, that marriage is a beautiful thing. It's nothing I've experienced in my life. And so when I say I have a dream job, it's because I know I am in an environment, even if it's late in my career, where I continue to expand my mind and work with people on Sundays who are looking forward to coming to the office
Monday morning.
Yeah.
But tell me,
by the way, we have great cafeterias too, and the food is amazing.
And now with AI, you have more time also.
That's right.
To
That's
spend
right.
in the cafeteria.
That's right.
But tell me, you've often talked about this 5 hours framework, right? I want you to tell our viewers about what this is and where are enterprises right now sort of getting stuck.
Sure. Great question. When you decide that you're going to start your agentic enterprise journey, you look at a particular process and you realize you need to redesign this process to be humans and agents. So you divide the work to high frequency, low impact, low frequency, high impact, customer facing, internally facing. You have thousands of processes that you evaluate. So the first R is redesigning a process to be agentic. Super important. Lots of creativity, lots of debate. Amazing. Love it. When agents are onboarded, you now realize you've freed up your human talent to do bigger, better things. Sometimes the bigger, better things means they're moving across the business. You might be doing customer support, and now you're doing sales. You might be doing sales, now you're doing software development. So there is this reskilling realization. That's the hardest part, by the way, the reskilling. Now, if you are Salesforce and you have a learning platform that's 10 years old, that right now has 21 million learners on it called Trailhead. In India, we have 3 million learners on Trailhead. We are at a massive advantage because we've been investing in this training platform for well over a decade. Our founder recognized the digital divide that exists is because of lack of education. So, by the way, we could have monetized and created a beautiful, very profitable business just charging for Salesforce certifications. It's consistently the highest demand job around the world are Salesforce developers and admins. 1.5 million people last year applied to work at Salesforce. So we could have had a very lucrative business. We decided that this is going to be free. So redesign, reskill. Now your employees at a level where you're satisfied with their reskilling, and now you're going to redeploy them to another function. That's the third R. Anytime you move a person inside of your business from one line of business to another, there's budget implications. Your manager changes, your team changes. So there's a very important restructuring that happens, really a financial exercise. If you've ever gone to a manager and said, I need to take some of your budget and move it somewhere else, you realize the spirited conversations that happen. This is why that's the second, I would say, most difficult. Not the redesigning of where to deploy agents, but the reskilling and the restructuring of your business, including flattening your business. There's less need for middle managers when you orchestrate a hybrid work environment. And then the last R we talked about was reclamation of value. You can reclaim things you've ignored, like supporting the 52% most predominant language in your second largest installed base in the world. I'm admitting the mistakes we've made in the past, reclamation. And I will add one more R because today I spent a lot of time with business leaders talking about recalibrating KPIs, key performance indicators. In a world of AI, the universal currency that matters most is tokens. Every time you leverage a language model, you retire a token. So recalibrating what success looked like. 2 years ago, if you talk business leaders to talk about important KPIs that had financial material impact on their business, nobody would have mentioned tokens. Today, it's top of mind for most CXOs that I engage with, certainly ones that are using agents and large language models. And so you have to be very disciplined. You have to make sure the token is actually automating tasks. We call those work units, Agentforce work units. So not all tokens are good for your business. Not all processes need to leverage an agent or a language model. Businesses are waking up in terms of how to smartly use artificial intelligence to become an agentic enterprise. So I guess there's 6 R's, but these are all important, very important, and the challenge will be the reskilling, and the challenge will be a culture where the relationship between the departments is more important than the department itself. And only strong business leaders who are self-aware, who are servant leaders, because the order of importance is always customer, company, yourself. But sadly, many business leaders today, they don't follow those rules.
They keep themselves first.
Yeah, for some, but certainly customer company, and for you to restructure at the speed you need to, you really have to have an outside-in approach. I call these leaders who are others-oriented. The best managers I've ever worked for, they were others-oriented. They always, it reminds me of my mom. Anytime we have family get-togethers, and we have a large family, I can promise you the last person to eat is my mom. Everyone has to have their plate, everyone has to be sitting, and everybody has to take that first spoon, and then she makes her plate. She's the most generous, strongest person in my life. She's shown me what it means to be others-oriented. It reminds me how important it is to live a happy, fruitful, successful life. And so I think that restructuring part can be very difficult if you're not others-oriented. But if you are, you have a competitive advantage unlike anything else, which includes committing to reskilling your people. I think when you're others-oriented, all the R's come naturally to you with minimal friction.
You know, since you did talk about your mother, I think that others orientation is also an orientation that you pick up from your childhood. It's what you've been taught, it's how you've grown up, and it's embedded in the Indian culture. You know, what you say about your mom is every mother in an Indian household.
That's amazing.
Always the last to eat and, put her plate. So I guess it really comes from, how you've grown up, what you've been taught while growing up.
I think you are the mashup of the 5 closest people in your life.
Yeah.
I think probably the four most important decisions you have to make in life is, where you live, who you marry, where you work, and whether you have children. At least those are the 4 most important questions and decisions I've made. And I think where you live and who you marry and where you work is a reflection of your DNA. And I can tell you that I am who I am because of my parents. In fact, I want to grow up to be my parents. If I can be half of my father or mother, that's the best gift I can give to my children. The spirit you noted, I didn't know that story I just shared. Again, a food story. There's another theme to this. Is a reflection of every Indian household. But it doesn't surprise me because it's not by accident and not by volume that my company has chosen to invest more in this country than any other country other than the birth country of Salesforce. And that's because of the spirit of generosity, the warmth, the others orientation. It's revealed to us in every interaction. And you can serve as a role model. We are in a world of converged uncertainty. As I said, tariffs, wars, climate change, disruptive technology, future of work, and different business models. I've never been more uncertain about the future. But at the end of the day, the one constant for me that served me well is people do business with people that they trust, they respect, and they like. So if you can continue to be trustworthy, continue to earn trust, and try to stay likable, you can have success.
But since you're talking about likable and not unlikable, in this world of transition and, as you said, energy flow, which is what defines all of us, is also sometimes, you come across decision as leaders in various companies on what to do, what not to do.
Sure.
And you, in your role at Salesforce, have also come across that decision many a times, and you've often talked about it, that, there were decisions you had to take when you didn't want to build a product.
Sure.
Sometimes.
Sure.
Without naming that.
Sure.
And that was on ethical grounds.
Sure.
If you could just help us understand what led you to that decision, and what is ethics in today's day and age? When you talk about Agentforce, when you talk about humans and robots coexisting.
Right. No, this is great. This is a great question. And into 20 some odd years of knowing Salesforce as a customer and an employee, the other one constant has been our core values. Long before AI was in anyone's vernacular, we had trust as our number one core value. Little did we know, over time, there would be even more energy and reason, deliberate reasoning for trust to be the number one core value. So business leaders, students, no matter where you are in your career journey, if I have the privilege of having you listen to this discussion, please double down on trust in terms of the North Star that guides, who you are and what you do. And again, what you think and what you say and your actions, if they're aligned, you can earn trust. Some people call it authenticity. I think that if you think and you say and you act with alignment, you're on a trustworthy path. And trust is a verb. Trust is a verb. It's your actions. You can sound wonderful, you can write beautifully, but if your actions are orthogonal to what you say and what you think, you will not earn trust. For us, customer success is our number 2 core value. So deciding on what to build and when to build and what to bring to market. If we believe it's going to erode trust with our stakeholders, employees, customers, partners, we've been on a journey of planting a trillion trees. We believe Earth is a stakeholder of ours. I want my grandchildren to be able to enjoy this incredible world that we enjoy today. And there's uncertainty about that in terms of climate change and what whether we're harming the only place we call home. And so trust and customer success. And I think when you talk to my colleagues in the function of sales, when you're in sales, you have to always be able to answer 3 questions, and the questions get progressively harder. Why buy anything? You have to be able to answer that. Why buy from Salesforce? Harder question. And then the hardest question, why buy now? I've been preaching the fact that if you're not an autonomous business, you're a dying business. So I'm trying to, with my book, with my articles, with my social media presence, use evidence every day to remind business leaders that this is electricity for the 21st century, and without it, you're going to be in the dark. But I think the 4th question that successful sales professionals always ask, in addition to those 3, is why am I here? Why am I trying to sell something to you? And I believe there's only one correct answer. I'm here to ensure your success. I'm not here to make President Club. I'm not here to earn a bonus or a salary. The hardest job in any company is sales. So if you don't follow the proper North Star, you're not going to be a successful salesperson. So to answer your question, it's our core values of trust, customer success, and lastly, innovation. We have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. We have to sometimes be unreasonable. I think the world changes only with unreasonable men and women, because if you're reasonable, you probably just follow the mantra, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're breaking things deliberately because we envision a better future. Announcing headless Agentforce 360 broke our entire monetization model that we've been using successfully, more successfully than any SaaS company of our size for 25 years. So again, the core values, if you're guided by trust, customer success, and innovation. And last thing I will say, stand in the middle of the line for too long and you'll get hit from both sides. Not making a decision is a decision in itself.
Yeah, it is.
So successful individuals are decisive, and sometimes those are difficult decisions. Don't get me wrong, it's not everything is in flowery and rosy in the world of Salesforce or even the customers we have the privilege to serve. This is a messy beginning. It is a messy middle. We don't even understand what finish looks like because this is not a destination. It's an ongoing journey. So you have to have strong imagination led by strong core values, and there are no easy buttons. I wish I could tell you, you want to be an autonomous business, push this button and it's done. It's not. And as I mentioned with those 5 or 6 R's, if there's one takeaway, when we talk about transformation, there's a lower capital T transformation and a capital T transformation. When it comes to lowercase t, that's technology transformation. Picking a language model, onboarding an agent, believe you not, it's not that difficult. We've had 12 years of building experience in that. Reskilling people, redeploying people to new jobs, this is relational transformation. Relational transformation is the capital T. By the way, I'm reminded the R in CRM is relationship. So I think that we have to get back to preserving human agency, focusing on healthy relationships, knowing, by the way, the longest study on health, happiness, and longevity is a Harvard study that's approaching 90 years. 90 years ago, Harvard followed 1,000 individuals. They've expanded that pool throughout their life. And they found, by interviewing individuals towards the latter stage of their lives, what led to your happiness, success, and longevity. And it wasn't fame, it wasn't fortune, it wasn't status. It was the relationship and the quality of relationships with their family and friends and colleagues. The biggest determinant of health, happiness, and longevity in the longest academic study in the world speaks to relationships. What does that mean as we onboard agents and people and create a hybrid work environment? I believe strongly that every business in the next 5 to 10 years will have a formal discipline called relationship design, which is lacking. I don't know many companies, if any, that have relationship design as a formal practice. We have experience design, we have leadership design. Are we designing purposefully for healthy relationships between not just people, but people and agents, agents and agents, and agents and people? No, we're not. So this is going to be an area of research for me moving forward, because if history teaches us anything, for us to be successful, meaning happy, healthy, and living long life, it's going to be less about technology play and more in terms of how we manage, career, plan, and grow our people.
But do you ever worry that that's perhaps the fallout or the drawback also of so much technology and AI into our lives? We're also getting isolated as a race.
We are. You know, I don't ever blame technology. It's not the technology, it's the people using the technology. They're always good actors and they're bad actors.
It's addiction.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is that the remote control for our life is now in our hands. I'm reminded.
And these short form videos. Oh my God!
This is why I think having a good boss, good colleagues, good parents, having individuals that understand the soft skills or the hardest skills to develop, and those soft skills can erode with addiction. The biggest influence in life is habit. You want better life? Develop better habits. And so that's really based on the questions we ask ourselves and the habits we form and the discipline and the grit and the resilience. I reference my parents, you reference, households in India. It's our parents, it's our colleagues, it's our friends who shape our thinking and provide us the environment, an enriching environment for us to thrive and grow. Yes, technology is and can be addictive, but ultimately I think your values create value. And I've worked for a company where there's strong evidence that business is the greatest platform for change. So as business leaders, recognizing that, you want to have better outcomes, you need to develop better habits, we have to be mindful of that. That conversation around cognitive transfer and cognitive upgrade speaks to a balanced approach to life. It's hard. But if you ever rode a bicycle, as soon as you stop moving, you lose balance. The key to all this is
flow, as you said.
Flow.
Yeah.
Nothing happens until something moves. Yeah. Nothing happens until something moves. So if you want balance, if you want to fight against negative impact of addiction, keep moving. And sometimes you need to slow down to go faster. Sometimes you need to detox. I wish I could be a role model for that. I'm not. I'm now addicted to writing. I'm addicted to, sharing my knowledge.
But that's a good addiction. Looking back, what would you have done differently?
I don't think I would have written multiple best-selling books. I don't think I would have been an evangelist at Salesforce. I don't think. I would have had a podcast that I've been hosting for 13 years. I've interviewed over 2,000 luminaries. I had Vinton Cerf, who's the inventor of TCP/IP, considered the godfather of internet. I interviewed last Friday, and this coming Friday I'm interviewing the Prime Minister of Australia. That was a realization that was given birth to when I decided in my mid-40s that every time I learn something, as long as it's truthful, I'm going to share. So I became an average writer. No, I say that. I read enough to know
You're
that I'm average.
an influencer, by the way.
Well, someone who's trying to be helpful, and what a privilege to be able to shape a business leader's thoughts. And that's all we are. The smartest person in the room is the room. Everyone you meet knows more about something than you do. Yeah. And wisdom is knowing that. So if you can be deliberate about random collisions, knowing everyone you meet is going to potentially teach you something. I mean, there's a reason she gave us 2 of these and 1 of this, so you can listen more. I've become a better listener, I would say, in the last decade, but selfishly because the better I listen, the more I can comprehend and understand. We only understand, or we only hear what we understand. So if you can improve your hearing skills, you can inevitably improve your understanding skills. And the more you understand, the more you can contribute. So it's been an amazing journey. And
nothing you would want to change or do differently as you look back now?
You're constantly reflecting on how to constantly improve. No, I've been privileged to. We all want to be remembered. Yeah. That's all I want. And to be remembered, you have to live a recommendable life. I was a chief marketing officer before I joined Salesforce, and people would often ask me, "What is the definition of brand? Personal brand, business brand?" And your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. I'm hopeful that when I'm not in the room, people have some kind things to say. So I have no regrets because my sense is, I'm living a recommendable life.
That's right. One business advice for that 28-year-old here in India looking to start off in their professional journey right now.
By the way, what an amazing stat that the average age in a country north of 1.4 billion is 28. What a remarkable future. The digital natives that were born mobile, social, in the cloud. Knowing this year's college graduates are the first time 4 years of experience with generative and agentic AI. First group of graduates that spent their entire college experience leveraging these powerful technologies. When you are 28, most of your life, people have been paid to assess your skills and your competence. You went through 22, 24 years of schooling where your teachers were obligated to grade you and give you feedback. Once you're 28, for most, unless you're pursuing a PhD, you're now competing for attention. You no longer have adults who are paid to give you feedback and give you a grade. You have to earn their respect, which means you have to continue to stay teachable. The best advice I can give to a 28-year-old is stay a lifelong student. The best teachers I know are lifelong students. And sadly, once you leave school, once you leave that formal structure of exams and lectures and professors, many of us tend to deviate from that lifelong student mindset. If you can read and comprehend, if you take the time to write, reading improves your writing, writing improves your thinking, and you can articulate your point of view. So if you can read, if you can write, and if you can speak in a manner that helps you connect, you're unstoppable. So to the 28-year-old younger version of me, Vala, you should have read more. You should have written way more. And I don't think I gave my first large speech until my 40s. I was building, a software engineer, building in a cubicle. So thankfully, not a mentor, mentors are wonderful, but a sponsor, someone who had higher social, political capital in business, recognized something in the 28-year-old version of me, extended her hand out by giving me time and attention and budget and resources, and turbocharged my career. I would have never thought that I'd be speaking to you as a chief evangelist from Salesforce. But the more I read, the more I wrote, the more I had the courage to speak. And I'm an introvert, so all of this is difficult for me, very difficult. And I have imposter syndrome. When I'm in a room like today with the CEOs of the largest companies in India, if they could read my mind, I'm thinking, what am I doing here in this room? Honestly. I am reminded that in order to have imposter syndrome, you have to have some success, or you wouldn't be invited into that room. But I still have it. So, dear 28-year-old, fight against imposter syndrome. Fight for your happiness. The world doesn't owe you anything anymore. So have zero sense of entitlement. And read, write, speak, and build more. And you're unstoppable.
And one idea, if someone had to ask you what to build in India, what kind of businesses do you see flourishing in the next 5 years, or even a decade for that matter?
I think you should start with the customer's need in mind. Work backwards. Work backwards. Determine whether a customer has a need, and that is agnostic to any industry. Doesn't matter what industry, doesn't matter what geography, doesn't matter what company size. If you truly can understand how to improve the quality of life for people, that could be a payments company that can give you a loan in minutes rather than days. That could be Air India that's processing 500,000 customer service cases now through agents, making sure that when we travel we don't have angst, which is like the airports is where I have the most angst in my life. So ripe for disruption. So focus on value creation and think about, is this something that can improve? And, litmus test should be you. Would I use this product or service? And don't always, spend time with friends and family because they may tell you what they want you to hear. Really pressure test your idea. Is this true value for a stakeholder? If it is, go with gusto. This is a creator economy. We're in a world of abundance. You no longer have technology limiting you from creating value. You can have billion-dollar companies of one person. You really can. You really can. Just look at the incredible companies that are being launched today and the size of the employees producing incredible value and generational wealth. There's no excuses anymore. Excuses are bricks used to build a house of failure. Stop using excuses and start living an optimistic, humble, always curious, teachable life. And great things can happen. Great things can happen. If there was a time machine, I'll go back to the 28-year-old version of me and talk about all the mistakes I made along the way and how you can avoid those mistakes. But last thing I will say, doers make mistakes. Smart doers make original mistakes. If you make the same exact mistake, that's not a mistake, that's a choice. You decided not to learn from your previous mistakes, so you made the same exact mistake. That's why being teachable is important. When you stay teachable, you make original mistakes. And the faster you go, the more likely you're going to fall. So give yourself grace and permission to fall, but have the courage to stand back up, learn from it, and keep going. Nothing happens until something moves. Flow.
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 Yeah.
That's the word of the day.
That's the word of the day.
That's the word of the day. Yes.
But thank you so much
My
for your
pleasure.
time today.
My pleasure.
Lovely speaking with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.